This episode of the Red and White Podcast is brought to you by TrashTalkText.com. Send your, quote, friends one trash talk text each day automatically for only $0.25. Check out TrashTalkText.com. And personal note, I no doubt went there and sent some UNC friends a few days worth of trash talk. Best $2 I've ever spent. And now here's your episode. All right, folks, we're back with another episode of the Red and White Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Evan. And once again, Dustin is not here. He let me down. You've actually been replaced. And think about making it a permanent change. Don't tell him. We've got Dave from Carter Finley back with us. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. I didn't think it would be so soon. So I guess that means I wasn't terrible last week. But I do have to say this, kind of following up what you said. So if I keep coming on here filling in and the Pack keeps winning, does Dustin have to wait till basketball season to get his co-host job back?
Oh, absolutely. Just like friend of the program, James, has to drink Rolling Rock every week now. If it keeps going, you're coming back.
All right, deal.
Put that in your calendar. A little note, inside baseball here, we're working on trying to improve our audio. If anybody has any feedback for us, whether it's good or bad, whether my levels are off or Dave or Dustin's level off, please let me know. It helps us. It's important for us to get good sounding audio, even though it's me talking as good as it can possibly sound otherwise. Also, if anybody's looking to sponsor us and get in front of 3 or 4 listeners, please feel free to reach out to redandwhitepodcast@gmail.com. And here we go. This week, with some interesting state news, some of it good, but unfortunately the bad side of things. I'm sure everybody's heard now that I think he's a junior now, defensive end Darian Roseborough's dad passed away. And I can't say how bad I feel enough for the kid. I mean, I know he was close with his dad. He's always talked about family's important to him. That's why he stayed here. He wanted his dad to come to all the games and practices. So, he's going through that, and Pack fans have no doubt reached out to him and gave him well wishes and all that. But that's got to be tough. The team's going to wear his dad's initials on the back of the helmets this week, so I think that's pretty cool. I think that tells you how much he means to Darian and how close he was with the program. So it's kind of a somber note to start on. And another one, Riley Nicholson, junior linebacker, has retired from football. He got his second concussion on the very first kickoff of the South Carolina game and decided for his health he needed to step away. He's still going to be working with the program. There's, he might have some concussions in high school and stuff like that, and you just feel bad for the kid. Pours it all out, does everything he can to play football, loves playing football, and then, bad break like that happens for him. But I'm sure he's got bright things ahead. Freshman linebacker Brock Miller's out for the season with a shoulder injury, and hopefully he comes back next year happy and healthy, because we're going to need some linebacker depth and somebody with some experience.
I'll follow that up real quick on Darian Roseborough's father. I can't speak to what he's going through personally, because I'm thankfully have both my parents still. But for a 20-year-old kid going through that, it's got to be real tough. And I think there's no good way to honor that. But I think the program putting the JR sticker on the helmets this week is a nice touch, classy touch, and it just goes to show it's another example of how Doran's building a family atmosphere in the program. And on Nicholson, it just sucks for the kid. He seemed to have some promise in the limited time we saw him. But, looking at the bright side, I'm glad he's able to walk away on his own accord and not, where he still has a bright future ahead of him, and I wish him nothing but the best. So,
absolutely. There's these kids all poured out for him, and all we can do when they sacrifice themselves and their health is just, say thanks. It's for our entertainment. So, keeping that in perspective. And, no doubt Wolfpack fans have been really gracious in the outpouring towards him as well. So, it's unfortunate, but, I guess it is what it is.
Now, before, I don't know if we're jumping straight into the Louisville game, but you left the biggest state news off your podcast notes. The rumors, by the time most people are listening to this, Debbie Al's rumored to be giving Doran a contract extension. So, Evan, I'll ask you, what are your thoughts?
Perfect transition. One of our Twitter followers asked us that question too. I'll pull up his exact question. It was, thoughts on Doran's extension, seems premature, but would love to hear your take. Now, anybody who's been following the podcast account on Twitter probably knows my feelings on this, but I think in this day and age where you can fire a coach in October, September, we've already seen 2 coaches get fired. There's no reason you can't also give a coach an extension. Now, I understand people's perspective when they say, hey, it's premature. Let the guy win. Let the guy finish the season. But what's going to happen is, if he comes winning out, it's just going to make things harder. It's going to make things more expensive. There's so many different variables coming into play when you talk about the coaching extension. From my perspective, I think it's a great move. Doran has showed progress. It's been frustrating at times, and we've always said he's been learning on the job a little bit. But at the same time, I think he's the right guy for the job, and I'm fine with her doing this now, getting it out of the way. It helps recruiting. I think that's probably one of the biggest aspects. You're going to solidify this. Hey, he's not going anywhere. If he does, we're going to get a lot of money from it. And then the biggest side of it is, it comes into play with the assistants. And for me, having that continuity in the staff is probably one of the most important things from a coaching standpoint that's going to affect the overall outcome of the program. And we saw that under Chuck Amato, right? They got fantastic recruits and they were doing things, but man, they change coaches every year, and you can't have consistency with playbooks and practices, and everything just doesn't run smooth enough. And when you have guys like Dwayne Ledford, who is just putting out an awesome product with the offensive line, there's going to be a lot of schools coming after these guys. So you find a way to pay Dave Doran, you find a way to pay his assistants, and you keep going and you get it out of the way, and you just take any question marks off the table. So to answer your question, I'm a fan with it. I'm fine. I would have been fine if they waited another week or if they did it last week. Either way, I think it's the right move. Let's do it.
I agree. I expressed last week on the podcast that I thought he was the right guy and gave some reasons. I'll go real quickly through. I wrote down a few thoughts. Do I think he's looking to leave? No. Do I think he's a, quote, hot coaching commodity that somebody's going to come snatch him away? Not yet, but the way things go and how quickly people move, you never know. By the end of the season, he may be. But under his leadership, there's no denying our program is the best shape it's been in since, the Phillip Rivers days. His teams play hard and act like they care, and that's a direct reflection of the coach and the atmosphere he's building in the program. And let's rewind back to February, March, April. What was everybody's complaint with Gottfried? His teams did not play hard, and they didn't act like they cared, and everybody wanted him fired. So now we have a football coach whose teams play the exact way state fans want. So that's another reason I like him. The players, for the most part, stay out of trouble off the field. There's been some instances where they haven't, and he's been real swift and fair with punishment, and that goes from freshmen that have just arrived on campus to star players like Shadrach. So, and this is all about expectations, respect, and discipline, and his teams just know that's how to live in his program. To follow up on your assistant coaches, I think they seem to love him and love working for him, and I think you and Dustin have talked about this in the past. It seemed like there was some rumors of some staff dissension when he first got here. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, or if you have any more info on that.
No, you're absolutely right. We've talked about it before. There was plenty of rumors when there was, I think, some rough transition with some of the staff that was here, but he wasn't keeping those guys. And then the guys he did bring in, the only one where there's been any kind of friction, rumor throughout the program has been Matt Canada. Canada left. And things have kind of evened out, and you don't hear that anymore. And I think that's a reflection in the field, man. I really do.
And all the hires he's made have been great hires. George McDonald. Yes. I mean, our wide receiving core is maybe the best we've ever had. It's definitely the best we've had in a long time. Barlow is doing great with our secondary. Eli Drinkwitz, what he's done with the offense, that's, you can see that for yourself. Kevin Patrick this year, so far the results have been good. Aaron Henry, I'll tell you what, this guy is so impressive. You see all these videos where he's talking to the defense and pumping them up. I'm sitting there like, I want to put on a helmet and shoulder pads, suit up, and go out there and play. I mean, that guy, he's a future star in the making, in my opinion. He knows how to motivate the kids, and in college football, that's half the battle, getting the kids ready to play and motivated to go out and do a good job. He impresses me so much for such a young guy. And then, as you said, Ledford, that's the best hire he's made. What he's done with that offensive line, I mean, we need to do whatever to keep that guy. There's definitely going to be some programs coming after him, and we need to keep him because what he's done with that offensive line has been nothing short of impressive. And then, let's be honest. I love Pac football. Evan loves Pac football. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably love Pac football. But in the grand scheme of college football, we're a mid-tier program. So if he's your guy to take us to make that step up from being a mid-tier team to one of the teams that's a perennial top 25 team, if he's your guy and you think he's your guy, it's never too early to lock him up. So
I think you're 100% right. And I just wrote down a note to say that because that was one of the counterpoints is, hey, why don't we wait for him to win, 8-9 games every year, and then we'll sign him a contract. It's like, look back, have some perspective. The program I don't think we've ever won 9 games back-to-back years. I think you go back and look at it on the whole, it's just middle tier, like you said, mid-tier program. And that's fine. We're aware of what we are, but if you want that guy to bring it to the next level, I think he's doing all the right things. He's already elevated so many pieces of the program, coaching, talent, all the things that matter. He's brought to the next level. But if you go back and look at it, I think the expectations are always higher than what they should be. Just because, hey, the fans show up. But that doesn't make you a good program, right? You need to go through the pains and go through the process of doing all these things and becoming a winning program. Clemson didn't start out that way. Clemson was right there where we are at one point. Louisville, same thing. Louisville was right in the middle of the pack in the Big East, and they started winning.
Virginia Tech is who I always compare us to. Before Beamer, they were, they were I don't want to say nobody, but they were not what they are now. And Beamer elevated them to a perennial top 15, top 25 team. And that's, I think State fans, we don't expect to win national championships. We just want a team we can be proud of, one that's always in the talk for, or at least has chances and has opportunities to compete for conference championships. And if Dorn's who we think the guy is, that we need to go ahead and lock him up now. I think the people that go straight to it's a desperate move, or they're going to regret this, or it's way too early. That's just a lazy narrative. I mean, the national media is going to go straight to that, and we as State fans need to be a little more smarter than that, and not fall in that trap and play to those lazy talking points.
I think that's exactly right. It's something we see so often. It just, I'm sure every fan base is like it, right? It's one of those things that they just think they're somewhere else, right? And they don't look at the whole picture and don't take any sort of perspective. Like, pull yourself out of the situation. Look back at NC State. What has NC State done? They're a bowl team. I think you have to start with being competitive in the Atlantic Division. And then you start getting in there, like, every year. They're like, all right, the Atlantic Division, the ACC is legit. There's 4 teams that can win it. Right? That's how you get yourself into that conversation. That's how you start building a program. And you have to have some consistency. And one other note on Ledford is he was offered offensive coordinator jobs. Like, people are already coming after him. He turned down the ECU offensive coordinator job.
Which is his alma mater,
like a brilliant
too.
Move right now. It's his alma mater to stay here as the offensive line coach. So pay the man his money. He's doing a great job. He's going to have some suitors. Let's keep him here as long as possible. You can't keep him forever, but we can keep him for a little while. Especially the guy like, Ryan Nielsen. Dave Doran kept Ryan Nielsen here, who recruited this D-line like himself. And the only way he got pulled away was going to the NFL. So, I think that's a fantastic statement for what Doran is doing and how he lets his guys do their thing and not, micromanage them like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and Chuck I love Chuck, but he was the worst at micromanaging his assistants, and that's why he couldn't keep them. But Doran, from all accounts, these guys love working with him, and he's not only a good coach, but a good guy. And I think that's one reason why we're not seeing as much turnover as we have seen in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this week, Louisville game. Last week, Louisville game. I don't know about you, but to me, there's nothing better than a big night game in Carter Finley. Make it a Thursday night game versus a ranked opponent or a good state team. That place was it was hot. It was on fire. Everything about it was awesome. I couldn't have had a better time. How did you feel about that?
That was a special, special night in Carter Finley. I tweeted this out, I think, at some point. I was on cloud nine, Thursday night into Friday morning, Friday afternoon. But those are the games that make it worth being a fan. That place was so loud the whole game. My section didn't sit down. We stood up nonstop the whole game, cheering, standing up. It was just awesome. And I'm gonna get to a point here, but I want to make a quick shout out to my wife. We're high school sweethearts since junior year of high school. October 24th will be 20 years since we started dating.
Wow.
She's absolutely amazing, my rock. I love you, babe. But I bring her up to get to this point. And this goes back to when we were in college. We did go to NC State together. But I always joke with her that I love her more after a state win. And that's half joking, but there's a good bit of truth in that too, right? Because, everything about life is just better after a state win, at least for me. And that's the beauty of sports. And after that Louisville game, I texted her. She texted me immediately. She may have tweeted at me. But I just texted her back in all caps. I love you so much right now. That's what games like that do. It was incredible, and I'm glad to be there. And hopefully we can have more of those going in the future because it was incredible.
I can't imagine being a high school recruit, being there or seeing that, and not wanting to play in that environment, especially if you're from this area. How could you do that and then go down the street to Chapel Hill or Duke and watch those guys? And it's not the same, man. I don't understand how, if you're paying attention and you didn't grow up like a Carolina fan or whatever, you just want to play in the best environment with the best program. You can't top that. It just doesn't get any better, man. It was awesome. I thought it was so good. I do think we probably could have won by 28. I don't know why, but I always felt like that. We outplayed them, and other than the suspect red zone offense, I thought the team played fantastic, but I don't think the score was even indicative of the game at all. It was a 14-point win, but I think the Pack controlled that game, and I don't know. I was so impressed by top to bottom by the Pack and by everything about that game.
Yeah, getting to your red zone offense, I think our first 4 trips were fumble, when we were down at the 10. First drive of the game, get all the way down there and fumble, then a field goal, then a touchdown, and then a missed field goal. So 4 red zone trips and only 10 points. If we, I mentioned this last week on the podcast. I mean, that's still been a nemesis of ours. We can move it all the way down the field, and then we seem to kind of stall out in the red zone. So we got to do a better job of finishing drives and scoring touchdowns.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's got to be an emphasis, because I think that's changed the game in quite a few games already. And I think as different scenarios play out, going on the road to Notre Dame and some of these other places, you got to capitalize on those opportunities. So
especially against this is several weeks away, but a defense like Clemson, you can't get in the red zone 4 times and get 10 points.
Yeah.
We did that last year, and that's why we lost last year. So
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what it is, play calling, or they need more field to work with or something, but they just need to change something up. And we've talked about it before, that we have the wide receivers, they're playing fantastic, and we got some big wide receivers. Let's try to utilize them more in the red zone, to exploit the advantage. I mean, C.J. Riley's 6'5" or whatever. He's going to tower over a defensive back. Make that work for you. Kelvin Harmon, 6'3", he can, he does the same thing. Make it work for you. That's what I want to see. That's, getting super nitpicky, but that's the only improvement I can see that we really need to make quickly.
Yeah, I have a few notes here on the game. I thought we talked about kickoff coverage being a concern, and our kickoff coverage was much better this week. I think we had 3 of 7 kickoffs that went for touchback, and then others we held them to an average return of 23.7 yards. So that was an improvement that we wanted to see, and we saw that, so that was good. I talked about handling adversity, responding to adversity. We fumbled that first drive. That could have we march it right down the field and fumble it right there at the 10, 15-yard line. That could have been a backbreaker, but we didn't let it happen. We missed that field goal early in the third quarter. Could have been like, well, here we go again, but we didn't let that happen. So we did a good job with both of those situations, responding to adversity. We did a much better job of containing the huge plays. We didn't have any huge back-breaking plays. They had that one long pass on a busted coverage where Pratt ran the receiver down. But other than that, we didn't give up the huge plays. So Huxtable's bend but don't break defense was a lot better, and letting them get chunks here and there, and then, getting them off the field, keeping them from scoring. The one concern from the game was Louisville was 9 of 16 on third downs, with several of those being third and longs. And I think that goes back to the corners still have to continue to get better at covering the wide receivers. We still have a concern there. But other than, the kicking game, which we may have, it's probably going to be a concern all year. The secondary is still a little bit of a concern, but I thought all those jobs is where they did better. I have a few other notes, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, so you mentioned the corners, and this is something I got to sit around Saturday and actually watch college football all day, and I watched Clemson Wake Forest, and Wake Forest impressed me. I've already talked about them all year, but Clemson's defense, and I think the reason why they're so good is their corners get up in your face. They're on the line, they're in your grill the whole time. I think that's something, what that does for the front seven is that it inspires a little bit of confidence. Like, these guys are they're gonna stay in the face of these wide receivers. You just got to get to the quarterback. You just got to get the ball. And I think that's a really underrated part of Clemson's defense. Man, you watch them play, and they don't back down. I think their corner play and their secondary play is really what's separated their defense. And I know their defensive line is great, but man, take a step back and watch their corners. And they made some fantastic plays against the Wake wide receivers. I was really impressed with the Clemson corners. And it's exactly what we need to get better. That's where we need to get better. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know if it's, they're giving them that cushion. I see a lot of other teams doing this, giving this 10-yard cushion. And I wonder how much of that is lack of confidence in the corners. And so they're coaching them to sit back and give a little bit of room. And, I don't know what the scheme is there, but that's my observation. I think everybody watch Clemson corners and then watch our corners. You want to be an elite defense, you got to man up a little bit more at least. And then my other note, you mentioned Jermaine Pratt. And you mentioned it in passing, but Jermaine Pratt running down that wide receiver, that was impressive. Amazing. That guy was running full speed, and Pratt chased him down out of nowhere. I was like, "Holy crap! That's he's our linebacker next year." And you can see why they love him so much. You see why they love his potential. I mean, he's the one with the pick six too at the end of the game, and just leveled Lamar Jackson, was even better. But I mean, I was really impressed by Pratt in that one particular play alone, man. Chasing that guy down was, wow, impressive.
A few of my other notes is, Lamar Jackson got his stats, but we got to him early. We had a sack on the first series and kept staying in his face, and he never got comfortable after that. I mean, if you look at the stats, they don't jump off the sheet at you like some of the, like that Houston game Louisville played last year. We had 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hurries. I mean, it looked like he was never comfortable, and it showed in some of his throws. He had some open guys that he just missed. I mean, their receivers had some drops, but he had some guys open that he just flat out missed. And I think we got to him early, made him uncomfortable, and that affected his play the rest of the game. And then, Ryan Finley outplayed him. This was by far his best game in an NC State uniform. And the knock on him coming into the season was the deep ball. And, man, he was on the money all night with his deep ball, and it was pretty to watch. And Harmon and Lewis coming up with some big catches like that. That one throw to Harmon, that was a thing of pure beauty. And he just drugged the guy in from the 5-yard line. I mean, if we get that going, that makes our offense so much tougher to defend. I mean, that was it was a great coming out party for Ryan Finley, and he's been kind of going under the radar, not getting any love, and it was good to see that on the national stage like that. Harmon's going to be a stud. That kid is something else. Naheem Hines, I love how he runs. He runs so hard, and he's fun to watch. And we were worried about replacing Matt Days, and I don't think Naheem's quite there. But Naheem is, he started off the season a little slow, but the last 3 games he's been rock solid and running behind that offensive line. The band of brothers, we talked about Ledford earlier, but the band of brothers. I mean, we may look back at the end of the year and have, this may be a big what if. What if at that first game we'd have had Richardson, Prescott fully healthy? We probably don't lose that game because once we've had the 5 of those guys healthy, I mean, we're just mauling people. Finley's not getting touched. They're opening big holes for the running game. I mean, it's fun. I love a team, when you need to get some yards, you can say, all right, guys, we need to get 3 yards, 5 yards. We need to get this first down to close out the game. And the band of brothers, what they've done with that unit, it's awesome.
You touched on a lot right there, and you're exactly right. I think it all starts with the offensive line. And a stat I heard recently was State is ranked 4th in the country in QB pressure given up. So only 11% of the time that Finley drops back, he's getting pressure. It hasn't given up a sack in the ACC games yet. And we're talking about playing Florida State, who sacked Jalen Hurts at Bama quite a few times, and Louisville and Syracuse. I mean, you played 3 teams in the 3 ACC games that haven't given up a sack, and you're only giving up 11%.
And that 11% is with the South Carolina game, where I think we gave up 4 sacks and a lot. I mean, they were in Finley's face a lot that game. And that was without our full unit. So that makes that number even more impressive.
It really does. I mean, so that offensive line is giving Finley all day, and he is just capitalizing on it. He has improvement from last year to this year. The command of the offense, the comfort level, and the decision making has just been fantastic. Last week we talked about he locked on a couple guys in that game, the Syracuse game. This week he was running down his checks. I mean, he was on point. And what that does in the offensive line play is, like you said, opens it up for Nyheim Hines. And Nyheim Hines is leading the ACC in rushing. Nobody knows that. Nobody's talking about that.
I think that's he's the leading running back in rushing yards. Yeah, I think the Georgia Tech quarterback may have more rushing yards or something like that. But
Hines is on pace to get 1,100 yards. I mean, people got to think about that. And when you're talking about Matt Days was the first 1,000-yard rusher we've had in 10 years, and Hines is on pace to break that again in his first year as a full-time running back. I mean, the guy is playing fantastic. He runs angry. He runs hard, and he wants it. You can see he wants it more than anybody else. I love watching him play. Yeah, I really do. I think there were some notes going around that there were some NFL scouts, obviously, in the stadium watching the game, and quite a few of them said the best player in the field was Nyheim Hines. I mean, that's a hell of a statement given the talent that was out there.
I mean, we rave about him running the ball and about him catching the ball out of the backfield, and he's become a decent blocker, I think. But did you see the play on the punt where he downed the punt? That may have been his most impressive play of the game. I mean, that was incredible athleticism.
Just the fact that he can focus on that, running full speed down the field, looking over his shoulder, catch it on the dime, and stop on the inside the one. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it was a hell of a play. And his kick returns. I mean, teams are just going to stop kicking to him because he's getting 30, 40 yards a clip, it seems like. He's liable to break one. And anytime he catches the ball, I mean, he is. I'm really impressed with him. He's really come on. I can't.
One last thing I have is, and this has been touched by several other NC State people, but I think we can't forget how big an impact Thunder Dan has had. What he's done with these players. If you look at the last 3 games, Florida State, Syracuse, Louisville. The fourth quarter, we have just pulled away from teams and put teams away. And I think that goes to what he's doing with their off-season conditioning, weight room. And I think that's been a talking point, but I think we can't forget how big of an impact Thunder Dan has had.
Pay that guy. That guy needs to get paid. Yeah. He's doing a fantastic job.
And I love Thunder Dan. He was at school at the same time I was, and I had a class or two with him, and great guy. And when he came back to be the assistant strength guy, I was pumped to have somebody like him because I know how much he loves NC State. Pumped to have somebody like that involved with the program. And then when he got the head job, I mean, I knew he was going to, with his love and passion for the game, he was going to make sure those guys understood that and have those guys ready to play. And it's obvious that he's doing a great job with that strength and conditioning program. So we got to give kudos to Thunder.
Yeah, absolutely. Big love fest here on this podcast lately, but no reason to do anything but. I remember, and it's funny you brought this up because I remember specifically watching. It was a Wake Forest game under Jim Garobe, and this was back when Wake was good. And I'm looking at their guys. I'm like, man, those guys are ripped. Like, why are they ripped and we're not ripped? Like, our guys they didn't look the same. And now, they were into stretching and yoga and all that crap. But now you can see the difference, right? You can see these guys develop, and these guys these are big boys now, and top to bottom, he's done a fantastic job. So, I think that was one of Dorn's made great hires. I think that was another great hire.
Yep.
All right, this week it's Pitt. Pitt's not very good, but it's still one of those games where they're in the ACC. They beat Clemson last year. How do you feel about this game?
I mean, I feel pretty good. I mean, if Pitt was better, I may be a little worried, and they're very inexperienced, very young, very inexperienced, especially on defense. They lost a lot of defensive guys off their team last year. And then on offense, they lost Peterman, the quarterback, and all do everything James Conner. So I think they're not good enough. I don't want to say they can't beat us because, they got D1 players that are ACC players, so they're going to have good players.
Yeah.
But if we go up there and just don't beat ourselves, I just don't see how we can lose. I think if we lose, it's going to be because we beat ourselves. I think we're better. The talent difference and experience difference is big enough where if we just go up there and play a good game and don't beat ourselves, it may be ugly, but I think we're that much better than them where we should go up there and win. We're 12 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen, but 12-point favorite on the road. I mean,
yeah, I'm with you. I think that's about how I feel towards it. I mean, they're playing their backup QBs, getting his first start. As long as they don't bring in the third stringer safety to play quarterback, I think we're okay. I don't have as much to worry about. But
yeah, and we're talking about they lost a lot off their defense, and their defense gave up 35.2 points per game last year.
Yeah.
So, and they've been giving up a ton of points this year. I mean, Penn State 33, Oklahoma State 59, Georgia Tech 35, Syracuse 27. So they're and Arduzzi's a defensive guy, but I just don't think he's got the guys yet to.
Right. I mean, Oklahoma State game now. Oklahoma State's good, but they were up 40 at the half, and then they just pulled off the throttle.
Yep.
So, Pitt played Syracuse close, and I will say the Pitt's left tackle versus Bradley Chubb is going to be the matchup. Their left tackle is an NFL caliber left tackle. I forgot his name at the moment, but
O'Neal, I think. There
you go. Watch him and Chubb. I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup. And
isn't he the guy that scored like that trick play last year where they had him lined up something like a tight end and he had that swing pass for touchdown or something?
I think so. I think you're right. I think this is what I want to see out of this team, and you and I talked about this last week, where Pack has played better on the road. Whatever it is, Dave Doran's got the schedule. He knows what to do on the road. The team seems to go away and take care of business. That makes me feel good about this game. Pack needs to stay focused. Everybody is, loving on them, and you're the greatest, and this is the best team we've ever had. Those sorts of things. Go up there and take care of business and get out of there and get out of the way. I mean, I think there's going to be nobody in the stadium other than a few Pack fans in the Pittsburgh area, probably.
Oh, that thing's going to be more than half empty.
Oh, at least. It's another one of those college teams playing in pro stadiums. It just never doesn't have the same atmosphere. It's just not the same. Kind of say the same thing for basketball, but I won't go there. All right, Pack. I feel good about it. You feel good about it. Pack wins. I've seen actually some prognosticators picking the Pack as their lock of the week. So, that's always scary, but I think that's just the state fan mentality in me. I think we're a better team than they are, top to bottom. And if we do what we need to do and play like they can play, come home with a W, get ready for I guess they got a bye week, and then get ready for the next game.
Yeah, I think we just – and Doran's done a good job so far here, and this is an area that TOB really struggled in. But we typically don't just sleepwalk through the first quarter or first half of games. So as long as we don't go up there and just not show up in the first half, I think we'll be fine. The first half may not be pretty. I would love to go up there and just dominate them. I think we're a better team. We all things being equal, we're a 3-touchdown better team than them. But with the coming off the huge win last week, and the one nice thing is we do have the bye next week, so we're not. I know Notre Dame's our next game, but that's still 2 weeks away, so we're not necessarily looking past Pitt to a particular game. So I do like the fact that the bye week's next. They can really focus on let's finish out the first half of the season, get into the bye week 6-1, and then we can talk about having a special season. But as long as we don't sleepwalk through the first quarter, we've played 3 ACC games and we've never been trailing. So I said this before the Florida State game to some friends of mine. we just can't go down there and get down by 2 scores. If we can go down there and get up by 2 scores, that'll be good. I said the same thing about Syracuse. We can't let them jump out to a big lead on us early. I think the same thing applies here. We just don't want to let Pitt get up by double digits early in the first half. I think if we can, maybe we come out a little slow or we're not clicking on offense or something like that. But as long as we don't go down 10-0, 14-0, I think we can weather some sluggish play maybe, or some not crisp play, and just out-athlete them and wear them down and pull away in the second half. That's kind of how I see it going.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. I think that's, to me, it's going to determine how well this team is focused. They come out and play sharp early on and just take the wind out of Pitt. Just don't give them a chance, right? Score on them early, get up a little bit, and just make them second-guess themselves. Like, those teams that are struggling like that, they do, and they just end up rolling over. So take them out early and don't give them that breath of life. The one other thing I'll say about this game is despite it being an ACC game, it really doesn't mean that much. If you're focused on winning the ACC, this game, what it does is helps you avoid any sort of slip up later on. If you go to Wake Forest and struggle or whatever that may be, if you lose this game, you get a shot at Clemson, and that's what's going to matter. You're head to head with Clemson, and you win that game, and you still have a chance to win the Atlantic.
Yeah, we can lose this game and still control our destiny, but I'd rather win this game and go into Clemson 4-0.
Yeah, I just don't want people jumping off the ledge,
And I think one thing that may help with the team's focus is this is not like Boston College or Syracuse, where it's a team we see every year, sort of like, we played this team last year, we dominated them, or whatever. It's a team we only play once every, whatever it is, 6-8 years, because they're in the Coastal. Mm-hmm. And so they have to look at film. They have to really study it. And there's not that familiarity there. So maybe that helps us focus a little better. That's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Yeah, I think playing in the pro stadium will actually help from that perspective as well. I think the guys will be jacked up about that. But, yeah, win this one, and things are looking pretty good. There's a lot on the table. We won't get into it now, but there's still a lot out there that's, I think, well within reach with this team. Moving on. I don't have anything else about Pitt. You?
No, I want to go up there and get a W. I'm saying 38-20.
I like it.
That's one of my favorite scores of all time. That was the Phillip Rivers game in Keenan.
Yep.
So I'm going 38-20.
How random was the score of the Louisville game? 39-25. You never hear that. I can't remember. I've ever heard that before. All right, and got a few other things from around the NCAA. I heard this early in the week. I was kind of flabbergasted at it. UVA, in their second year under Bronco Mendenhall, goes to Chapel Hill as the 3.5-point favorite. I mean, that's UNC's fallen a long way when your dogs at home to UVA.
Yeah.
Now UVA's a better team, but man, I didn't expect that at all.
Yep. A quick reversal of fortunes there for those two programs.
Yeah, everybody knows Bronco Mendenhall's a legit coach, and he's showing it. I think UVA got a good one there, and everybody's going to point to UNC and talk about their injuries, but yeah, we've had those years too, so I don't feel bad for them at all. My lock of the week last week, unfortunately, did not do so well. I don't know how Marshall didn't cover 14. They pushed. I guess they lost technically, but they went down to Charlotte. No, that game was on some no-name channel that I ended up having. And, man, UNC Charlotte's offense was awful. I'm pretty sure me, you, and 9 other podcast listeners could go out there and put an offense together that be somewhat more competitive than that. But Marshall only scored, 21 points or something like that. And they gave up a cheap touchdown in the end. I couldn't believe that. So I let y'all down there. I think you had Notre Dame.
No, I wanted to take Notre Dame. That's who I should have took. I took Georgia, which was no. I took Florida. Sorry, I took Florida, which was a loss unless you took it right before kickoff. That line moved from Florida -3 to by kickoff it was Florida +2. So it was I
tried to warn Dustin about that on Twitter. He said he put that one out there too. LSU had a lot of guys missing from that Troy game, and you typically don't see a team lose like that to Troy and then come out and play flat against another conference opponent. I was not comfortable with that one. And then speaking of, let me get this intro music. See, one of our new features, if I can get this playing. Oh, I don't know if that worked. There we go. That's my "Oh Canada" music for Dustin. Matt Canada goes down to Gainesville and coaches up LSU to the win over Florida. Offense actually looked good. I watched some of that game as well. It looked scarily familiar. Jet sweeps everywhere. LSU doesn't have a quarterback, so naturally what they did was all those misdirections, which I thought was funny. I don't know if we talked about this last week where Coach Orgeron came out and just flat admitted he wasn't letting Canada run his offense. And then he's like, well, this week is going to be different. They let him put back all the misdirections in there, and they really exploited Florida's inexperience at linebacker. And that's what those jet sweeps are basically designed to do. A better team is going to cover them up. But that leads me to my question for you, Dave. This one comes from another one of our Twitter followers. And his question is, it's James Curl, of course. Would Dustin trade Eli Drinkwitz for Matt Canada straight up today? I'll ask you that question since Dustin's not here. How do you think of the comparison?
Would I trade or would Dustin trade?
No, would you trade? I know what Dustin would do.
I think Doran put it best in I think his weekly press conference this week, where he said, I think that move has worked out for all parties involved, and I would say, I would take Drinkwitz, and I'm fine with where we're at now. And I think Canada's going to do a good job at LSU, but I'm perfectly happy with Drink. So,
yeah, I'm with you.
And I have a quick funny Drink story. So I was lucky enough to go to the basketball game at Duke this past year. Nick, our mutual buddy Nick, hooked me up with a ticket, and me and him went to the game. And, everybody knows how awesome that was. We were walking back to the car afterwards, and Drinkwitz had gone to the game with Bobby Purcell. And so we're walking there, and we see it. We notice it's Drinkwitz, so we go up and talk to him, and he was super pumped up. He's jabbing the Duke fans walking by, talking some junk, and you could tell he was just loving it. And, of course, Nick throws me under the bus like, hey, Drink, this is the guy who's always yelling at you about your bad play calling for Section 18. But that's a good Drink story. It was his first state Duke basketball experience, and he picked a great one to go to. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I think, and I'm with Dorn as well. I think that one's going to work out for all parties. Canada will do fine at LSU. Give him the reins, that offense. Give him the athletes from that offense, and give him a quarterback and give him a fair shot. But I wouldn't trade it. Maybe some of the red zone play calling. Maybe. I don't know.
We still got to work on that.
All right, we got one more question. I'll leave this for you. It's actually 3 questions. They're all the same. What is the appropriate way to handle all this winning? How do you keep the guys grounded after all the hype from the last several weeks? And then the last one is halfway through the season, feelings about where the pack is in the rankings, too high, too low. Is the ceiling the roof?
I love is the ceiling the roof. How do we handle the winning? I'm just enjoying it. I'm going to enjoy it all the way through. I'm going to enjoy the ride. And I just caution all state fans, let's let's enjoy it. Let's not be, when are we going to ruin this? Let's not have that negative, defeated mentality. Let's enjoy it while it's happening. Because, I think we all knew that this season had the potential with our talent on the defensive and offensive lines, and with all the skill offensive players coming back. So we need to just enjoy it. And however long the winning lasts, we just, we've always said we win the tailgate, and now we're winning games. So let's win the games in the tailgate, and then win the tailgate, then the games, then go back out in the parking lot and win the tailgate again. So that's how I would handle it. What was the second part of that question?
How to keep them grounded. Sorry.
I think last year with all the close losses we had, I think that's keeping the guys grounded. I think you just remind them of that and say, we were close last year, and you guys remember how that felt. All those games where we had it there and we let it get away, and now we're taking care of business in the fourth quarter. We figured out how to win, and this feels a million times better than these plane rides home, or these the law of the jungle celebrations in the locker room feel so much better than the agony that we went through last year with all those tough losses. So I think that's helping us this year. As hard as it was to go through last year from a team, I'm sure the players, it was super hard for them. But from a fan perspective, I think all those close, tough losses where we let it get away last year is helping keeping those guys grounded, because they want to redeem themselves. They want to prove that those weren't fluke losses, that we are a good team and a good program, and they want to go out on a high, especially these seniors. They want to go out. They've mentioned it all year, all offseason. They had something to prove, and I think that's helping to keep them grounded.
I think you're exactly right, and that's exactly how I would answer it too. This week we'll really see Dave Doran's, keeping them focused. You got 24 hours to celebrate, and then move on. I think that'll really come into play this week, because they're on a high right now. Bring them back down, focus, rinse and repeat, and do it again. And I think he's taking the right approach. I think it's the only approach you can take. I mean, they're kids. Let them enjoy it. Let the fans enjoy it. Let's just go and see where this brings us, man. This is a good team. They're doing the right things. Right on.
And I just absolutely love the Law of the Jungle celebration in the locker room.
Oh,
that
so
is how did the young kids say it? That is hype or lit. Lit's the way to go. Okay, now. That is lit. Or straight fire emoji. I mean,
yeah. If that doesn't give you chills when you watch those things, man, you ain't got a pulse. And I love it. I love those. I feel so good for them. I'm happy with them, but I feel good for them.
I mean, can I just take a shot at our rival? They don't go to class, and we're celebrating wins with a poem. We're chanting a poem in the locker room, celebrating a win. So
absolutely. We'll leave it on that note, and I can insert some more dramatic music. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's all we got this week, folks. Dave from Carter Finley, DFCF99 on Twitter. Follow him. Dave, thanks for joining. And let's get the W, and we'll bring you back next week.
Thanks again for having me. Go Pack.